if you guys got a paper and a pen, go ahead and grab it out and let's write this down. All right, so the revenue producing pyramid. All right, you may have heard me say this before, but it's something I want to make sure. It's a simple analogy, and it's definitely something you want to pass on to your group, your team, and that's what we get paid for. We get paid to expand our network. We get paid to talk to people, to really simplify it all. Barbers get paid, right? Barbers get paid to cut people's hair. If they go to Vidal Sassoon to do a training and learn how to, cut hair better, that might make them become more valuable, but they're not getting paid for that time, right? If a pilot flies an airplane, that's what he does to get paid. If a pilot can't fly an airplane or is off learning how to fly Jet 32s, most likely he's not being paid for that. He gets paid to fly airplanes, right? Well, as network marketers and as a direct sales agent, you get paid to talk to people and prospect every day. That's what you get paid for, prospecting, inviting. That's the main way that you get paid, okay? And so through that, expanding your network, I'm going to kind of break it down a little bit further here with this revenue producing pyramid. Okay, and I'll break it down. And some of you that have been with us for a while, this stuff starts to become, you keep hearing the same things over and over, and that's because eventually we're going to brainwash you into revenue producing activities. Okay, so first of all, quality conversations are really all that count. I have people all the time telling me, oh, I left this many voicemails. I called for an hour today. I mean, keeping track of time is good, but it doesn't matter in the scheme of things. I think if you want to get yourself on track, we're going to start next week where you're going to be committed to a certain time frame for prospecting. And we're using time as a way to hold you accountable. And that's a great way to start. But as you start to develop the habit of prospecting, you eventually realize that time doesn't matter. Okay, what I mean by time doesn't matter is that what really matters is how many quality conversations did you have today? The number of quality conversations you had. So as you look over here at the little triangle where it says expansion, every single day, you're looking for quality conversations, new quality people that you can build a relationship with. Okay, that's the number one thing that matters. The second part of expansion is realizing that you can find better quality people. The better you get at asking questions, the more you start to get better at identifying, is this person worth my time or not? And you often hear us talk about 3, 5s, or 8s, right? And we're not going to talk about 3s today, because if you got a 3 on the phone, that just means see you later, dude, right? Toodles. Okay, but there's 5, 8s, and 10s. Okay, and so we haven't talked much about what 10s are, but a 5 is somebody that, hey, you had a decent enough conversation, they're looking for a business, and it's worth getting some information over to them, but you leave the ball in their court. An 8 is someone you book an appointment with because you feel they've got, the right good energy, they've got some desire, they seem like they have the ability to do what we do, and they seem like someone who, can get the money together. And so they hit those 4 areas. So that's an 8. You book an appointment to get them in front of the information. And then a 10 is somebody that's affluent, somebody that has a social network. Maybe they've got some sales expertise. This is someone that's got great communication skills, a network. They're more like, really, they hit your ideal quality list. But, even a 5, it's a quality conversation. A quality conversation is anybody you believe has a potential to get in business with you. And that's a quality conversation. So on a daily basis, I want you guys to start realizing you've got to commit to how many quality conversations am I going to have today, and not only think about, well, I'll do 30 minutes, I'll do an hour. I mean, it's good to have time to have a track to run on, but eventually you want to get to a point like I was, where I asked my mentor Ron. I said, Ron, I go, how am I going to get to 10 grand a month? And he's like, you're going to have 10 quality conversations a day. You're going to take 10 people and get them in front of the presentation every day. And that'll start to give you the level you got to play at. If you want to make 3,000 a month, then you better, and you want to get there in a reasonable amount of time, then you better have 3 quality conversations every single day. Okay? So that's the number one area that you want to focus on, that you want your, people to focus on. And, there's all different levels of prospects. There's warm market, your friend's warm market. There's different ways to generate leads, which you can talk about. There's purchasing leads, obviously, but there's a number of different ways to do this. On the right-hand side, the outer game, okay, as you prospect more, as you talk to more people, as you have more conversations, regardless of who the person is, the more conversations you have, your skills are going to improve, right? Your ability to communicate is going to improve. Eventually, your ability to recruit is going to improve, right? Your outer game, your skill sets are going to improve. And there's a lot of different strategies in the outer game, as far as first you start with, your warm market or purchase list. And I want to bring Ron on to talk a little bit about strategies, because with the way technology is today, Ron, I'll kind of pull you out on this one. With the way technology is, there's all these different strategies, attraction marketing, blogging, all these different things that we could do. And the challenge with that is it takes a long time to get great at a lot of these things. So what would you say, Ron, is the number one, number two strategy for people to really master, for them to be really in a revenue producing, mode of momentum in their business?
Well, I think the first thing you need to do is not get into new projects that require skill development or skill building. And I mean, being in this business and getting good at this business should be enough as far as your time investment and commitment, as far as dedication. But learning how to do other things that don't make any difference, you're going to be spending and wasting a lot of your time. There's two sources of prospects. There's your warm market, there's other people's warm market, and there's lead generation. And really, those are the only forms of contacts you should really be focusing on. I've seen so many people get distracted trying to learn new things and how to master the internet or master Facebook or master blogging and how to get new prospects and stuff like that. But the long and short is you need to be learning your language skills and be speaking to prospects and spending your time where you can make money, not learning a different skill that's going to help you in the other one, because that's not going to really make a big difference in the long run. And it's just another distraction, and you got to really avoid those distractions, because that's really what adds to your time from where you are today to where you want to be as success. Anything you'd like to add to that, Joe?
Yeah, I would. And there's somebody dialed on the phone, so I'm not sure who that is. Dean, can you maybe mute everybody out? All right. So someone's phone was just getting bumped. Thanks. So, yeah, I think what I want to add is, if you look at the next slide that's up here, there's some basic things that we're going to do to build the business. There's lead generation, like Ron said. You can, warm market, you can buy leads, you can generate leads. The point is you got to have people to talk to, and if you could eliminate that. For the most part, eliminate the having to go and master actually generating leads for you and the new people getting started. Why not? Because there's other things we got to do. We've got to prospect. We got to recruit. The two things that you can really eliminate for the most part is lead gen and presenting. And you want to do that because generating your own leads and actually presenting the business are the toughest to duplicate. People aren't professionals at generating leads. It's going to take them a long time to learn it, and they're not professional speakers. That's why we have tools to do the presenting for us, and that's why we have systems for leads from people we know, or purchasing leads. Either way, you've got to have more people to talk to than you have time. So, Dean, I'm going to throw it over to you for a second and have you add on to this a little bit. If we can, to get a new person going quickly, we've got to eliminate, them having to master these different areas. Wouldn't you agree, Dean?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. That's everything that Ron said is so paramount. The main thing that's got to be focused on is the listening and communication skills. Without that, everything else is just wasting time. I often think about it, draw an illustration. If you ever see those guys, the landscapers, after they're done blowing the lawn or after they're done cutting the lawn, they go around with those backpacks with the blowers and there's like dust everywhere. That's like what you're kind of doing. You're making this big mess with all this dust and everything instead of being on a focused path going right to where it's going to produce you the revenue right up front. Sometimes it amazes me, Joe, how much people struggle when, if they would call leads consistently for 2 to 3 months, they would have the communication and listening aspect mastered, and everything else falls into place right behind it. And it's just everybody wants the instant microwave, instant pudding, microwave. They want to enroll people right off the bat, and they miss the bigger picture that what they're getting from this and practicing consistently is that habit, that 10,000-hour habit that should be focused and worked on in order for them to be, as eloquently speaking when they hear you or I or Ron speak. And everybody thinks that we're at this space so high above. I tell people, look, if you just do this for 3 months, you'll be as good as we are. We're close enough so that you'll be that good. That's all it takes is practice. That is definitely the most important part of the whole, being able to communicate effectively. And part of that is listening, being able to listen. That's how you're able to ask questions on a consistent basis.
Well, Dean, I want to jump in because you said something that Ron, that I actually learned directly from Ron, and it made a ton of sense, Ron. They hear you, Ron, or me, or Dean, or they hear someone, and it can be a little intimidating. Going, man, it's going to take me years to get that good. Ron, kind of break down how that really doesn't happen if you get moving, right, Ron?
No, I mean it's a matter of practice. I mean, if you put in your effort and if you stay focused, like everyone's been talking about, you start developing your skills. And as you develop your skills, you get a lot more effective at the core of this business. And, I look back and what it used to take me a year at first when I was first starting in this business, and I really didn't have the language skills down. I fumbled a lot. People saw the nervousness, and they just sensed these things, and it just took me a long time to get past that stage. Now, in a matter of a week, I'm able to accomplish what it took me a year when I was first getting started. And it's only because I've been able to compress time through my new learned skills. And, after you've made, say, 1,000 or 1,500 phone calls and talked to people, that is the best training, because that will give you the test of time and the test of rejection. And when you take those two combinations and you learn from them, you become a much better person. And as a result, you become stronger at your business. Your language skills develop. The stuff that Joe talks about and Dean talks about is absolutely phenomenal. Learning these language skills, because that's what gives you the confidence on the other side of the phone. And when you're talking to a prospect, whether it's live or over the telephone, giving them the persuasion to move them over into your business, because people want to follow a confident person. They don't want to follow someone who's hesitant or unsure or is just very vague. And I think that through practice you develop that very important skill. And that's not something you can learn in the classroom. It's only done through practice. It's like some things you just can't do with a book or with a computer. You have to physically put in that effort. And maybe you'd like to add something to that, Joe?
Yeah, and just, everyone says, Joe, how can I become a master at recruiting? And, just going back that it really comes down to confidence and enthusiasm. I mean, that's the two main elements that you got to have. You've got to be confident. You've got to be excited. And there's a belief that, Ron, you talk about a lot, which, because people have asked about how can I be more consistent at prospecting, at recruiting, at taking more action? How can I be more consistent? And Ron, what you always say is, you've got to actually operate, right, like your success is guaranteed. Why don't you share a little bit more on that, Ron? Why is that an important belief?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. You can't have any hesitation. It's like when you're driving home from work every day, there's never the fear of getting lost or not finding your house. It's become a habit. It's ingrained. You don't even think about it. You don't have to think when you're going to make a left turn or stop or look both ways or anything like that. You know your way home without any doubt. And see, when you get in this business and you practice this business and do this business, you have to have that absolute conviction and that certainty. It's like I said a long time ago, if someone put a piece of wood between two buildings, 1,000 feet in the air, and they ask you to walk between those two buildings and that piece of wood, there is no way you'll do it because you're afraid you're going to fall. But if someone took that same piece of wood and put it across a carpet and said, can you walk across this without touching the carpet, everybody would do it, and there wouldn't be any hesitation. And that's the kind of dedication, and that's the kind of focus you need to portray in your business. And you can only do it through actions. And the more actions, the more calls, the more people you talk to, the more objections you get, the more of everything that you get, the better you'll become. And you'll have that guaranteed success. When you go into this business and you act like you're guaranteed success, you're not going to fail. It's impossible to fail at that stage. And it's just when you're hesitant and you're unsure, that's when it's difficult to carry your, your business through and enroll people and lead people, because people want to follow a strong leader. They don't want to follow someone who's weak. And you have to be that strong person that people want to look up to and they want to follow. And it's bringing it down to the simple things that you do on a daily basis, and it's the consistency. You have to do it every single day. You got to eat, breathe, and drink it. And as you do that, it's going to become you, and you're just going to become a whole lot better at your business.
Ron,
Hey, Joe?
yeah, I love that. Well, I love that analogy. I mean, the whole 2x4 between the buildings, and I love it because you're right. I mean, people when they go to prospect, depending on, maybe sometimes it's your warm market that's your greatest fear. Maybe you want to identify what is your greatest fear, or maybe your greatest fear is to be able to approach people out and about, or maybe it's to talk to a lead. I mean, whatever your greatest fear is, that's the area, the weak area. That's the area that you actually want to go and stretch yourself. You've got to stretch yourself in the areas where you're weak. And when it comes to prospecting, people say all the time, and I don't know who's bumping the phone, but somebody's, bumping the phone right now. But when it comes to prospecting,
all guests are now muted.
These people, whether you buy the leads, you generate the leads, you start to realize that these people they're all the same for the most part. I mean, 90% of America's wealth is owned by 10% of the people, and 90% of the people share 10% of the wealth. Okay, so you got a pretty much 1 in 10 chance, finding a decent person. I mean, you've got to play the numbers game. Ron, you and I have, invested, millions of dollars generating leads, and what I've found is we used to spend $4, $5, $6 creating our own leads. That's about how much you can spend right now. Talk to us a little bit about. I get this a lot, especially from the leaders that are making, 10 grand a month. They go, I'm too good to call leads. I'm not going to call leads. I'm too good. I mean, those people don't have money. What is your advice on that?
Well, you got to ultimately do as a leader what's duplicatable. That's what people have to see you doing, because if you want your group to do the things that are going to make them money, you have to always put yourself in a position where they can look up to you, and you have to do the same things. As a top leader, I was always enrolling people on an ongoing basis. I was always doing the three-way calls. Sometimes I used my downline to do a three-way call because I didn't have someone upline to do the calls with. But I was always doing the things. So I was keeping myself sharp and in tune to the business. And it was about, I had to duplicate myself, and with that, I set the example for my group to grow, and that's what they had to look up to. There's nothing worse than a leader that manages their group and bosses their group, because first of all, everyone's an independent business person. No one got in to be bossed, and people are looking for mentors. And if you want your group to do the things that's going to make them build their business and build your business, you have to always stay at that stage of building. And remember, in this business, it's about duplication. And it's not how much work you can do, it's how much work you can get 1,000 other people to do just like you're doing. And that's where the wealth comes in. It's not how much more you can do, it's about how many more people you can get to do the same thing. And you have to keep it real simple and duplicatable, because anything other than that does not multiply.
Absolutely. And Matthias, you can see on here today, really sharp 24-year-old, I don't want to call you a kid. I hate when people call me that, but real young man. And Matthias, internet marketer, and he found, from doing some of the attraction marketing, that he was able to do it. Really, really smart SEO guy. He's able to create traffic and leads. But Matthias, what you found, and I don't know if Dean can maybe unmute the lines quick, you found that you had a really difficult time to duplicate that, Matthias. Ron, I love what you just said. It's not about how great you can be. It's about what can you, how 1,000 other people do. And, if there are some elements, Ron, I think this is a question that I've got asked quite a bit. Is there elements as a leader, Ron, that you do kind of behind the scenes, some different things, but, on the front lines, you're really not showing some of those elements because, again, you've only got to share duplicatable principles. Can you talk a little bit about that as people rise up in leadership? Are there some secret things that you would do behind the scenes that you would not duplicate?
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of things you have to do, and you have to, when you're making a six-figure income, you have to build that stuff into your schedule because, I mean, there's different requirements of a leader when a person's got 100 people versus when a person's got 1,000 people, or when you've got 10,000 people. There's a lot more commitments involved in what you have to do, and one of the things you have to do is engage your leaders in leadership calls and leadership training and leadership counseling within your group to make sure that, you know, they're focused and they're keeping on track, because you really have to focus with the smaller leaders that have got the groups of, you know, 500 to 1,000 people to engage them so they don't go off track and get distracted and start, you know, losing their momentum. So as your group grows to, say, 20,000 and 30,000, absolutely, there's a lot of different requirements necessary to sustain that and to advance that momentum, because it's very easy to get stuck if you don't have the leadership or the skill set, you know, to move the group forward at that stage. So, yes, you just have to add it to what you're doing, but again, it keeps coming down to the same thing. You're duplicating at a different level, and you still have to teach what can be done, not what you're doing necessarily. And when I say what you're doing, a person with 5 people in their group, that they don't need to be doing leadership trainings with their 5 people. Right. They need to be plugged into the upline leader that's doing those leadership trainings.
So what you're saying is, as people are growing in ranks, there are different duplicatable responsibilities, but it's not like, you know, a guy with 10,000 people on his team and a guy with 10 people on his team, they're not all going to be doing the same things. And I think that's good for people to know, because a lot of times there's a lot of confusion of, well, I talked to a guy making 10 grand a month, and then I talked to my upline who only has 100 people in his group, whatever, and they're giving me 2 different, you know, ideas. Well, of course they are. They're in different places. And I think isn't that what makes a leader great, Ron, is really, what do you do, Ron, to kind of assess, you know, what is it that I do teach this person? You know, is there certain increment levels, or how do you kind of assess what you do, duplicate, and teach?
Well, it really depends on the company and the compensation plan and where your leadership lies. And I'll give you the first mistake leaders make is, let's say you have a really big leg. And let's say you're in a business where you need, say, 5 or 6 legs or 10 legs to be qualified for a position. I've seen this happen time and time again. You spend all your time in the leg, it's your biggest leg, and you're coaching everybody. Well, it's because it's easy to do that. If you've got a leg that, and most people have got legs that are what we call the mega legs. They'll have 60-70% of their people in that leg. That's not where you need to be spending your time. You need to be spending your time in the other legs that need the support and the leadership so they can grow. A leg that's running away on you as far as growth, they've got leadership, they've got momentum, but it's easy to spend your time in that leg and appear like you're doing a lot of leadership and you're busy work. Right. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I've seen leaders make, is where you see one person, one top leader above another top leader, and they're all working in each other's legs. They're not building any new business. And the new business is what really is going to drive their existing business. So that's the first mistake I've seen. And that's where you need to be very cautious and work at, you know, where the fire is. And the fire is with the new people. That's where it burns. And that's where the growth occurs. So, but as a leader, you have to, you know, deal with responsibilities. And as your group grows, your income is going to grow and your responsibilities are going to grow. But you also have to be wise as to where you spend your money and your time and effort, because that's where you have to build. And it comes back to new business. In this business, it's all about the new business. The new business is the new recruits. And the newest people that come into your business, those are the people that you need to be setting the example for, because that's your next level of leadership.
Dean, I want to throw a question over to you here, and I'm going to come over to you and ask, you know, what are some different things to avoid distractions in a home-based, you know, business office? But before I do, I want Ron to continue his thought. And Ron, you know, I just had a leader right before this webinar, you know, and asked her if she could come on, and she said, no, I can't. And she's about 12, 13,000 a month. She's, you know, she's got to build out 3 legs. 2 legs are rocking. She's got to build out a 3rd leg. And she goes, Joe, what should I do? And I go, well, you know, you stop recruiting. You got to be prospecting and recruiting. That's what you got to do. She goes, well, I've called leads, and I just, you know, I haven't met a lot of great people from calling leads. And so I know what I told her, but I want to see if it's in alignment with what you would say. What's something, she's got good communication skills. She's willing to walk around town. She's willing to cold call real estate agents. She's willing to do kind of whatever it takes. She's got some money she could advertise. Somebody at that level, what advice would you give to her?
Well, the advice I would give to her is that she needs to get back into working some new business because, there's no point in maintaining what you already have because your group's going to continue the growth, okay? Whether it's doing lead generation at a different level, meeting contacts face-to-face, that you need to stay where you stay sharp. And you need to continue that because, you need more legs. In this business, you can't, unless, again, depending on the compensation plan, if it's a binary, it's a different compensation plan altogether. But if it's a business where you have to have 4, 5, 6, 7 legs, you need to be bringing in new people and replacing ones that are, fading off. And the best way to do it is by keeping at the edge. When I say keeping at the edge is what we call it, the leaders need to be recruiting as well. I've seen it time and time again. I've sat on Circle of Champions groups where, the top 10 people in the company, and it's the same thing. 3/4 of them were retired. They weren't actively building their businesses, and their paychecks have flattened out. They weren't growing either, and there's a reason for that. And the reason is you have to stay sharp, and you have to stay at where you were in the first 30 days of the business, and you just have to repeat your first 30 days every month. And it's that excitement level and that activity level, except what you're doing is you're executing it at a much better level than you did in your real first 30 days. But you got to repeat your first 30 days in a business every 30 days. And if you stay at that pace, then you can't go wrong.
Love it. Love it.
All guests are now unmuted.
Okay. So Dean, let me go over to you real quick here as far as just people being able to stay focused in home office with not getting distracted by stuff going on in the home, their home office. What are some tips you have on that, Dean?
Well, one of the best pieces of advice I could give anybody is two things. It goes hand in hand. Is communication, and then scheduling specific time where you are completely isolated in your home office. However, on the flip side of that, you also have to schedule time to spend with some of the distractions, which might be your spouse, your children. You want to create spaces where you're spending quality time with those people, with the understanding that when you have to do business, that's when you have to do business. So it's not something that you can just sit down and just create it like that. I mean, you can, but it's not going to be perfect when you first create it. It's something that over a period of a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, okay, you'll impress that upon some of the distractions that you're getting so that people understand. But it's a give and take, Joe. You just can't say, hey, look, don't bother me right now, and then be unavailable at other times.
Right.
You have to retrain the people, the distractions that are going to occur in your home office environment. Now, of course, there's some distractions like somebody knocking on the door or having a package delivered, and you can simply have a sign or something made that you can hang on your door, like, hey, you have a package, leave it on the step. Don't disturb in the middle of a client session, whatever. There are several things that you can do, and all it really all boils down to, or you can just get the very foundation of it is communication. That's where it all starts with. I mean, it's just not only is it about our business, but that's how you avoid all the distractions that consistently happen in your business. You have to retrain your kids, retrain your family, and conversely, you also have to be able and willing to create spaces where you give them focused and dedicated time. Having dinner every night with them. I mean, I could go on with that.
Right. No, that's good.
That is probably the best advice I could give for limiting and avoiding distractions in the home environment.
No, that's very good. And Ron, I'd love you to piggyback on that because I know, you've built your, for over 30 years, you have experience. You've got several kids. I know I know Jan's been very supportive and even worked the businesses with you, but I know you've also had to deal with people where, maybe the spouse wasn't that supportive. What tips do you have if the spouse is giving guilt trips, things like that, Ron?
Well, that's difficult because To have success, you have to stay focused. To have success at anything, you have to stay focused and committed to the task. And, you have to be like a laser beam. And you have to have your times on a daily basis where you commit to your activities. And it's no different than having an eating schedule or a workout schedule. It's amazing. People will pay attention to a workout schedule, never miss a day or a time, and never miss a meal. Always on time. And those are things that are not as important as your future and your success. And your future and your success needs the same dedication as some of the other things. I mean, you realize that people sometimes take more time and effort to plan a vacation than they plan their success?
Right.
They will have their vacation plan to the T, what they're going to do every night, where they're going to go, what they're going to eat. They plan it for 14 days to the T. But when it comes to their own business, they're scattered. They're not that kind of focus. That's the kind of focus you need in your business. You have to have the determination, but you also have to have the discipline to carry it through.
Right on, Ron. And Ron, I'm gonna have I think this is interesting because I don't think you've met Matthias yet, but Matthias experienced the pain of getting really good at generating his own leads, but not seeing it duplicate. Matthias, can you comment a little bit on that, just for people that because there are a lot of people that love to be able to do what you do. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, what you saw, how it, the duplication that didn't happen really in your group.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome. Straightforward, it's not the place to begin. I went through that experience, and it took me about 2 years to fully understand direct response marketing, search engine optimization, video marketing, laying out blogs, capture pages, affiliate links. I mean, I believe I've kind of mastered it to this point. But
you said it took you It took you 2 years, and you're a laser beam. I mean, you're the guy who stays up super late, gets up super early. You're consistent. I mean, it took you 2 years of solid dedication. Isn't that what you said?
Right, and I was single, and I didn't have a family, and I did that full time, 12, 14 hours a day. So once I had leads coming in, I found out my biggest struggle, was my language, my communication. And that's when I kind of came back around. I think it was a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I met you guys. And from then on, I spend more time now calling genealogies and buying leads than really working on my blogs because it's not the most duplicatable. I can't teach a solid realtor or Grandma Joe down the street how to get online and build a blog. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And it costs me more money trying to teach them and spend 8 months trying to teach them the internet than spending more time on the money-producing activities of this business. And this is what I've learned to you guys, and it's what's allowed me this month alone. I've sponsored 14 people into my business because I've just been proactive on the phones. I mean, I said forget the blogs. I use a different word, but forget the blogs and the internet. I still do a little bit of video stuff, but it's really become the phones. The phone is now my best friend.
And I want to jump in, Ron, and have you comment on that, because one of the biggest things you said, Ron, was that, like Matthias, not only the time, right? Like Matthias is a real case study of going and following all the attraction marketing guys for a bit and getting good after 2 years of solid dedication, but he was 2 years he wasn't developing his communication skills. So Ron, again, how important is that?
Well, it's, first of all, congratulations that you learned how to do that, because that is a very difficult skill to learn. And it's even a more difficult skill to teach because it does take so much time. And people get in this business to get some results, and they're not looking for an additional learning curve that's going to take a very long time. Now, that all being said, there is a lot said about, talking to prospects on the phone, because that builds your communication skills. And your communication skills, your people skills, what we call them, is really what's going to take you into leadership, because that's the area of practice and development that you need to really focus on. Because through a lot of the effort of talking to prospects and, dealing with the three-way calls and dealing with the problems and challenges and fixing the problems and challenges, that's what's going to make you a strong leader. And that's where your business is going to explode. Now, the other stuff you could still do if you could find the time. But remember one thing, the other stuff is very difficult to teach. And when something is very difficult to teach, it's also very difficult to duplicate. And our business is about duplication. So it brings it down to the simplest form of effort. And that's where you have to focus. And, and that's the key. All these other things, they do work to a certain degree, but they just take a lot of time. And most people don't have the extra time on top of what they need to do to learn the skills in this business to apply.
Hey, Dean, can you mute everybody out? At what point, Ron, do you say, you know what? It's time for me to have a bunch of crazy stuff going on at the house on the conference line.
All guests are now muted.
There we go. At what point do you break away as a leader and go, you know what? It's time for me to do my own team calls, and it's time. You know what? Can you give any? I know it's different depending on the comp plan, but give us a little framework on that.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of very good examples. I had leaders that were doing team calls with 40, 50 people, and they were doing them very well, and they were very comfortable. And other people were doing them with 10 and 15 people. They were starting to do their leadership calls only because the upline wasn't available or there was a slight conflict with the upline. So they decided to take the initiative on their own. So it really depends when you feel comfortable in doing it and the kind of support that you're getting from your upline. So between those two factors, it could be anywhere from 10 people to 50 people in your team that you need to start doing some leadership and accountability calls and counseling with your team leaders.
Left for Ron, we really appreciate you and thank you for your time. And we'll shoot for next week to get another video interview going with me, you, and Dean, and get that created for everybody out in the net. But any parting words, Ron? Everyone's saying thank you, and we do have this recorded for our Lions Den. Any parting words from you, Ron, as you exit out?
No, I mean, I'm excited to be part of this because I do remember, the early stages of when I first got started in the business, and as I progressed and had tremendous success in this business. And you guys are in for a tremendous ride. It's a fantastic career, and remember one thing, network marketing is the shortcut to success. You need not be looking for shortcuts within the shortcuts. So stay focused and stay true, and you've got 2 years where you can achieve pretty much just about everything you've ever wanted to in this business. But don't stretch it over 20 years. Just stay on the 2-year plan, okay? It's like going to college. You want to get out in 4 years, not 10 years. So do the same thing in your business.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Ron. We really appreciate you being here today. It was great. And I know that there's you guys, there's some room left for those of you that don't have leads. I just want to give you a couple ideas on leads. One thing you may want to consider doing, especially those of you that have a high ticket product, it's at least 1,000 or more. Some of you here, your products are 3,000 or 4,000. I would really encourage you to get local leads. So you can pop an email is the best thing to richard@leadpower.com, and just go ahead and send over the area codes. Let him know the quantity you want. He'll shoot you back a price, but give him like 3 area codes, at a minimum, and let him know about how many leads you want, and get some prices from them, and then they can do that. He can get those kicked out, or he'll even direct you to a self-serve site where you can do it on your own. But to have leads locally is a great idea, because once you get, once you talk to an 8 or a 10 on the phone that's local, and you qualify them and you have a good interview, then you can go meet the person. And when you go meet the person, it's going to be easier to recruit them, number one. But number two, it's going to be easier to get in their warm market and create synergy in their warm market, because you could do a home party, at that point. So local leads is a great way to start creating some local momentum in a predictable, consistent, and very affordable way. So that's one idea I want to share with you, that you can get local leads. A lot of people don't think about that. It's definitely something you should consider doing. Another thing is Ron has a promo right now. I'll throw it down here if you guys didn't see it. And this is a great promo. And you want to start using promos with your team. And let's see here. I think it's super promo. There we go. And I'll explain to you how you do that. So don't just think about getting leads for yourself. You got to think about having leads for your team. And I'm not saying just buy leads for everybody on your team. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you have some incentives for your team. We've always done incentives, right? You'd say, listen, this is the last week of the month, okay? Anybody that can get me on the phone and get me on the phone to do 10 3-ways this week, or 5 3-ways, whatever the mark. It doesn't have to be how many people they recruit. If you've got a newly formed team, and them recruiting a person a week is a big milestone for them, make the milestone smaller. Okay, so hey guys, I know there's a lot of new people here. Here's what we're gonna do so it's fair. The first person to get me 5 3-ways, I'm gonna give them 500 leads, or I'm gonna give them 100 leads. Okay, and you can go pick up a batch of leads from Lead Power. You know, right now you can get 600 leads for right around $100 with that special they have. As an example, there's also a couple in the back office. $99 you can get 1,000. At $149 get 2,000. For $149, if you got 2,000 leads and you broke them up into batches of like 250, you have 8 packs of leads either to incentivize someone to join your team as a new recruit, or to incentivize some of the people already on your team to get you on the phone to do 3-ways. As an example, you know, one thing I found is that if people aren't getting me on the phone to do 3-ways, then they're not working. I mean, because if you're not doing 3-ways with me, you know, you're not working. If you're trying to close the leads yourself and your communication skills suck, that's not even going to happen. So one of the simple milestones to give people is get me on 3-ways this week. If you do it, I'll give you this. Okay.
I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna be a good night. A feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night. That tonight's gonna